Hi everyone, this is Lily. I'm a social worker with Child Protective Services, also known as DCSF or CPS. And today I went out on the field to meet a new family, and they were right down the street from one of my favorite foster homes. So I decided today needs to have a video about great foster homes. So I know everybody's concerned about kids going into foster home is their safety, right? You hear a lot of things in the news about kids not being safe, being hurt, being abused, all kinds of worse stuff that they were having at home happening in foster homes. But the reality is that the percentage is actually kind of small, or at least it's not as bad as they make it seem in the news. Yes, kids do get hurt in foster homes. And I don't believe that there's like a conspiracy to try to cover it up. But some of these homes are magnificent. Some of these homes are just okay. And yes, some of them are not great. But you know, being in that neighborhood around that same street, just that right down the street, made me think of this family and how she would be my go-to for difficult teens. We have a few. We have like our own internal list of who do we like for what type of situations. There's some foster parents that really make an impact on kids' lives. This this lady, I had a, I've had kids with her in the past. She's one of the homes that's, they're career foster parents. They take in all kinds of kids that need a place to stay. She also did respite care. That's when you babysit foster kids. And it can be just for a few hours, or it could be, for a week or whatever it's needed. So I had a kiddo that went and stayed with them, and this was a 15-year-old girl, very shy, timid kid. Never got in trouble. And after she went and stayed with this foster family for a week, the next time I went to see her, she was like in shock of how well she was treated, because her experience at her regular foster home was just blah, right? Like, she was safe, and that's what mattered to her. She didn't take into account all the other weird rules that this foster home had. So this was like a comparison between two homes in good standing. At her home where she was at, she was able to stay in her old school. So that was the main thing that we were looking at, right? Teenager, very important to stay in their high school. This foster home had a rule of like she would walk home from school, but if she didn't make it by snack time, she would miss snack and she would have to wait till dinner. Or the days that she had to stay late for practice, if she didn't make it for dinner time, she got like cold leftovers. Like, there wasn't, like, it was just weird. Like, the things had a schedule. Like, she could only shower at certain times because it was a bunch of kids in that home, and they had like this structure. Other things, like, they would only buy generic and they wouldn't get the stuff that she needed. So if she needed like a specific shampoo per se, she had to ask her mom to get it for her. And none of, I mean, these things are weird and bordering on violating personal rights, especially not feeding. But I think it was just like, you make it by the scheduled time or you get leftovers. It wasn't like she was sent home without food. But still, it was like, weird. She was saying like if they would go out to eat, or like if they went to get McDonald's, they could only order off the dollar menu. Things like that, where you're like, well, foster parents get paid for taking care of these kids. That's a little off. But in this other home, she, can shower whenever she wants to shower. She can take as long as she need to eat her meals. She doesn't need to, she can just walk into the kitchen and grab whatever she wants to eat. And for her it was like kind of like a mind blowing, like she didn't know that she could complain about these things because she didn't know. And for us to going to visit these kids, we wouldn't even know to ask if there's a curfew for your shower. To me that is just so crazy. So I did end up making a report about that family for foster care licensing to go look at it, and they just found there was a couple things they did find were violations, but for the most part, no, it was just quirks of the family. But in comparison, this other lady, she was super patient. My only concern with them is that they were a little too Christian. Like they took the kids to church with them, which technically we're not supposed to force any religion on them. But they could have stayed in the car if they didn't want to go, or bring on their phone so they could be on their phone while the rest of the family is paying attention to the church or whatever you call it. So that was my only like little inkling. But these foster parents were all in on school meetings, taking the kids to appointments, on kids with behavior issues, with being there and being present and understanding that these issues the kids have come from their trauma. It's not just the kids being bad kids. So I remember the foster mom telling me about how the kid hit her or he kicked the car or things like that. And it wasn't like a threat. It wasn't like a, I can't handle this kid because I do these things. It was just like, hey, I'm letting you know this is what happened. This is how we handled it. We just waited for him to calm down. He knows the rules. He waited it out. He didn't get to play on his cell phone that afternoon. And that was it. And it was kind of like, part of everyday life. Like you would treat your own kids. Your kid throws a tantrum and they hit you. You don't give up on them. You keep parenting them. And that's something that, a lot of foster parents won't put up with. And they don't have, they don't have to, because really these kids are strangers to them. But it's great when we see families that do, and go the extra mile to make the kids feel loved and supported, even despite all of these behaviors they might have. I remember this family as well with the two different set of foster kids I had with them. The kid with behavioral concerns, they would take him to therapy outside of school. They would also go to the school meetings. This kiddo ended up being changed schools because he made threats at the school. And it all stemmed from their trauma with mom caring more about drinking than them. So the kids were only like a couple years apart, and the older one was completely parentified, taking care of the little one. The little one was the rebel. So she worked real good with them, helped them stabilize and helped them go back to their dad. The dad was kind of like a weekend dad where he was kind of there, but not really. And she was super patient with him as well, inviting him over to like holiday celebrations and things, so that he could get comfortable in that role to be a full-time parent. And even after the kids went back to the dad, she still kept in touch with the family, help, like the dad would call her for any issues that he had, to like get support and how to handle it. It worked out great. After a few months with the kids being wet with him, we were able to close the case, and I've never heard of them coming back again. The other kid, or the teenager, the 15-year-old girl, she she brought a boy to the house, and they handled it so great. They didn't embarrass her, tell her. They just said, like, it's getting kind of late, why don't you say bye to your friend and come in. Because she was like hanging out outside making out with a boy. Which would be like a huge deal at home for some of these teenagers. but she was good. Then afterwards they had to talk with her about being safe and all that stuff. Embarrassed her a little in private. But they made plans with like when it's appropriate to bring a boyfriend and when it's not. Like you have to have your homework done first, and then you can hang out and no sneaking around, and you can have dates, but under these conditions. And also took in the mom's input because the mom was very anti dating and no, absolutely not. But just like in talking with like what's developmentally appropriate for these kids. Yes, 15, 16-year-olds are gonna want to date, and you have to learn to be okay with that, otherwise they're gonna do it out behind your back. So not only did this family do great working with the kiddos, they were great at working with the parents as well, helping the family reunify, helping the parents see this is what your kids need, and you see how they're different here with me because they have this structure, and helping the parents keep that structure at home as well. That's my favorite home. With it, there's other homes that mostly specialize with babies. We have some programs that are like for them to get extra training in drug exposed babies, and the extra challenges that come with that, like developmental issues, irritability, withdrawals. So we have a special program for that, again with a bunch of dedicated foster parents. Another great foster parent that I've had the honor to work with was like super connected. She knew everybody on first name basis. And if anything wasn't good for the kids, she's just like start emailing the people she knows to get things done. So that's great advocacy for our kiddos. And she did like to take babies, but she was also a great go-to for transgender kids. So she would tell me stories about how she helped some kids, and for these kiddos she was more of like a transitioning or a cool place for them to stay, well then if they were having trouble with their foster parents, as well as just being there for support for other foster parents. The other type of foster parent that I gotta admit I was totally biased against is what I call the pandemic foster parents. When everybody got sent home, jobs went away, there was a few people that everybody picked up a new hobby, and some people picked up foster parenting. And I gotta say, at the beginning I was kind of biased because I got two different families that were brand new foster parents that just got their training done, like from the beginning of the pandemic, right? When everything shut down, we don't shut down, so they came to us. And I was initially like, oh my goodness, these people just picked up a new little hobby. Their expectations are completely off. Like, they don't understand. But really, it was just a matter of like, they were like any other foster parent I worked with before. When you're a brand new foster parent, you don't know the rules, you don't know what to expect, you're a little shocked with everything. Yes, your expectations are way off because you have no idea. And all it took is open communication. One of the families was like, can't do it anymore. Everything they were like, I remember they were telling me like, okay, we're assigning this to you because they're kind of high needs and you're good at talking to people. And it was just a matter of like, hey, this is my number. I'm your social worker. Just call me whenever you need something and I'll help you figure it out. And then it was fine. Like, yeah, the some people are high drama, some people are not. These people happen to be high drama. And I could tell, I always said, I can tell when people are a boss at work because they think they can boss you around, but that's just the communication style. That's just how they are. And they never actually try to boss me around. It was just that's the tone of voice, that's the tone of their communication. And I'm more laid back. I'm not a planner, I'm not a scheduler. I do things when I get a chance. So being able to find that middle ground, I just forget what I'm trying to say and my brain goes off. Or the words go out of my brain and then I can't figure it out. So that was the type of foster parent that I completely underestimated and did. I was totally biased when I first started working with them, but they both ended up being great foster parents. And the main complaint I got about the other family was they were too attached from the beginning and they wanted to adopt. So I told them, yes, wanting to, as long as they're not stopping the reunification process or sabotaging the parents in some way, wanting to provide a permanent home to a kid is not a bad thing. And if the main concern we have is they love these kids too much, that's a good problem to have. That's what I told everybody that complained. They ended up not keeping the kids. The kids did need a permanent home, but we found a relative that could take them. So, what I said from the beginning was, if they're too attached to the kids and the kids reunify, that sucks for them. But it's great for the kid. And yeah, it was tough. And they were considering not fostering again, because it was pretty painful for them. They were very attached to the kiddos. Um, but I think at the end of the day, they knew that that's what was the possibility. That's what, and they never got in the way of us trying to do a reunification or to try to set up the kids going to a relative. It was again just that expectation of, or that point of view of seeing them as not knowing the expectations. And again, their friendly foster parents are not really gonna know the expectations. It's on the workers to teach them. And I mean, who am I to say they had the greatest teacher? Well, that's all I can think of to share with you today. So thank you so much for spending this time with me. Thank you.